So we won't be needing to issue debt for this, but we then have an annual payment that gets amortized over the life expectancy of that piece of equipment that goes into the fund, so that when we need to replace that piece of equipment, we've got the cash there to replace it. So these options, this costs the $1.2 million, includes $150,000 payment annually into that fund. And then we'll talk in the draft agreement you have, depending on how that might change. And so when you take those costs and you divide that out by what we anticipate revenue from both the low end to the high end, like we've kind of talked about before, on the low end collection, which is a 25% collection rate, we'd have an operating loss of $470,000, which is compared to the subsidy request of $675,000. So we'd still have about a $200,000 better operating position if we do this than if we pay AMR. If we make the exact same amount as AMR with what I did is I took a 5% off of that just to kind of give us a 5% buffer. So if we make the same revenue as AMR, we'd lose $113,500 between all the agencies, which is a $540,000 better operating position. And if we make the high end, which is about what Plainview's collecting between the entities, we'd lose about $30,000, which to me, for all intents and purposes, is breaking even. So I think we're definitely in a better position this way. And so if you look at that estimated cost breakdown, so if we paid AMR, and I know we haven't talked about exactly what the share would be, and I've got a method of doing that in the draft interlocals you have, but just for this, just for kind of a comparison, I followed how the calls break down for our dispatch service. So this is about the percentage of calls, just for a comparison. So if Border picks up 60% of the cost, which is about how we have about 60% of the calls, about 30% of the calls are in the county, and about 10% of the calls are in Fridge. So if we pay the AMR subsidy, that's that first column, the county would be looking at about $202,000 a year for that. If we operated and we're at the low end revenue, which, is the worst case scenario, which from everybody I've talked to won't happen. Even Panhandle collects more than 25%. So, I mean, that's why that's a very safe number. I don't think we'll ever come close to that, but I wanted y'all to have, worst case scenario. So the worst case scenario, the cost of the county would be $141,000, which is still about $60,000 a year better than what if we paid AMR. If we make the same revenue that AMR makes, the county would be looking at $34,000. And if we make that high end, it'd be about $9,000 a year. And like I said, I did summarize just a little bit of the operational aspects of this. So if we had gone with AMR, we'd retain our current service levels, which I don't think are necessarily bad, but that's 1.5 ambulances. Of course, AMR retains all the liability and billing responsibilities. They would remain, we'd remain able to pull from their Amarillo staff if something happened or their equipment needs, which right now, that's why you see a big blue AMS ambulance working around, because one of their ambulances was involved in a crash. And so they're having to use one from Amarillo. Of course, the funny thing with that is I've heard there are people in this community who think our ambulance is Amarillo right now. They're like, did you know the different color ambulance has Amarillo? Of course, that is not true. It is an Amarillo ambulance, but it is at least stationed here. And then, of course, AMR does give us a fixed budget amount, but I'll talk about how I'm proposing to deal with that in the interlocals. Then if the fire department does it, of course, we, the taxing entities and the citizens would own some assets. If we're paying AMR, that money just goes. And yes, we're getting a service for it, but there's no tangible assets to offset any of that. Of course, we have a little more local control. We all have to work together whether we like it or not sometimes. And so there is at least this dialogue that if we have issues come up, we can control it. I think from a community aspect, when we talk about supporting our community and Borger in the county, and really all the entities are good with that right now. Like, just for example, when we had our concert in April, we asked AMR about putting an ambulance out there. They wanted $1,900. So, from a city standpoint, as a city community event, we're going to send an ambulance where we can, depending on what the needs are. And
so do they provide any services like that, like at the football games or?
if they are compensated.
If they're compensated only.
So they charge the school too.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so we'll have to, depending on operationally, but all of our plans include a third secondary ambulance. So we'll have a third ambulance. It won't be primarily staffed, but it'll give us some flexibility for football games or community events. If we don't have one of the primary ambulances available. In last Tuesday's event, we could have thrown 2 firemen on that third ambulance really quickly. And that's kind of what I've always said about this right now. If the county's out an ambulance, in Borger, at least, like the fire guys are sitting there for 30 minutes waiting for the ambulance to come, we've at least got some level of service providing some care until the ambulance gets there. But in worst case scenario with that backup truck, we can at least go pick them up and get them into the hospital.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, we would retain our mutual aid agreements like that, and some of that's in the agreements there, but a little easier to work with that. Of course, we're looking at cross training. So eventually, EMTs and paramedics will be cross trained on fire, which provides a secondary benefit to all of our citizens because we do have our fire mutual aid agreement. Our fire department responds to the county and region as well. And like I said, it would still be 2 ambulances 24/7 instead of 1.5. And of course, we would work to transition as many of the AMR employees as we could, based on some of the cultural changes and things like that. We're going to make sure that the budget proposals that you've had are at a current compensation package that's equivalent. I say that because some things are different, like city retirement through the Texas municipal retirement system is a lot different than what they have a private 401k now that is 1-to-2. So an employee can withhold 14% of their paycheck and the company will match up to 7%. City retirement is 2-to-1. It costs the employee 7% and the city 14%. And so there are some of those, AMR doesn't even pay for 100% of the employee only insurance. The city does. So, we're having to take some of that into consideration when we set what that pay is, but their compensation will be similar. I don't expect, someone to take a big drastic cut just to work for the city to do it this way. And of course, we do have quite a bit of regional cooperation. That's some of this. We've been working with the county and the city of Fridge and the hospital district. The hospital district looks like they're going to pitch in. They're going to cover the cost of our medical control. They're going to do in-kind contribution for the use of the ambulance barn, and we're working on getting the ability to use their supply agreements for pharmacy and medical supplies, which will help reduce some of our operating costs. So we are finally kind of getting everybody involved. It's a little different how it comes. The council did approve the budget amendment at the last council meeting. So the city is going forward with providing ambulance service. So we're going to at least provide ambulance service for the city. And so I think, after our discussions, the talk with everybody is, to do that regionally, but we are moving forward. So we've transferred $1 million from general fund reserves into our capital equipment fund for the initial purchase, depending on how that works out, because we had to go ahead and authorize the purchase of some ambulances so that they'd be here. So we did find 2 demo trucks. And when I say demo, they're brand new, but they weren't spec for us. They were spec for the third-party sales company to go around and try to get more ambulance sales, but they are new. One will be here in February, one will be here in March. So that, of course, was our biggest lead time item. Everything else we've already worked through. COTS have about an 8-week lead time. Cardiac monitors have 34 weeks, but we've secured some loaner units that we can use from Apollo and Stinnett until we get our new ones in. So we've got most of that done. We're adding a $394,000 in estimated revenue for the partial year and $602,000 in expenses. So we're planning on an operating loss of $208,000 in that first year, or the remainder of this budget year, mainly because, we're going to have to incur some expenses right now before we have any revenue. But that won't impact the county as of yet, and we'll talk about that in a minute. But $690,000 for new vehicles. That's 2 new ambulances and 1 used, and then $310,000 for the other miscellaneous equipment. I think I provided you a detailed list of what that capital is. There's almost as much equipment on an ambulance as the ambulance. So an ambulance is $282,000. The equipment in it takes that total price to $400,900. So I've given you two draft interlocal agreements. One includes an upfront payment of the county reimbursing our capital cost, and one is just a month to month. Or not month to month, but it's an annual billing with no capital increase. And some of that's based on your ARP money and some initial discussion with the county. City, we can handle this one way or the other. The way that I've got the billing set up either way is I kind of want to talk about this is so these interlocal agreements won't incur a financial obligation until fiscal 2025. Because I want to make sure that we have hard numbers. I don't want to, generally talking with way we do with dispatch and dealing with the other entities, especially Fritz and Stinnett, and the counties a lot of this way too. Y'all like hard numbers, you don't like a guess. And the city's got a few more revenue streams than the county and some of the other cities, so it's a little easier for us to kind of absorb some of those unknowns. So both of these agreements take a annual July 1st through June 30th budget period. So the way we would do this is the city would operate the ambulance service until June 30th of 2024. Then we would calculate the operating loss on that full 12-month period. So we would have hard numbers. By doing the June to July, that gives me time to get the taxing entities what your cost for the next budget would be in your budget process. So you would know what your share of the operating loss is by the middle of July so that you can work it into your budget process. So it's a little wordy how that's kind of worded in the two interlocal agreements. That's how that works. And I think if you don't want to do that, tell me now, but I haven't heard a government entity that wouldn't prefer it that way, but.
Do you have copies of those? I didn't see those in the email. Did you get those?
I have a copy.
Okay. I don't think they were sent out.
Oh, I sent it out in a separate email last week.
Yeah, I got it. I got it.
Yeah.
I haven't read that second one.
Well, if everybody else has got it.
I read it.
Sorry, there goes my bit of stuff. So of course.
So I saw these.
So then the only other difference between the two options is so if the county chooses not to contribute to the capital outlay, then that $150,000 annual payment will be factored into the operating loss, and then everybody has their share of that. If you choose to use ARP funding to reimburse our capital expense, the way that it works out is this equipment is expected to last 7 years. So your annual agreement is a 5-year agreement. Your upfront payment with the capital involved is a 7-year agreement, which will get us through the life expectancy of the equipment that we're going to buy. So if you choose to upfront it, the way that it works is we will give you credit for that upfront cost. And the way this worded is we would submit you receipts and it'd be on a reimbursement basis. So you're not giving us any more than what was actually spent. Then at the end of each year, when we calculate that operating loss, we will apply the operating loss to the amount that has been upfront, up to a fixed amount per year. If the operating loss is less than 85,000, if the county's share of operating loss is less than 85,000, the city will pay the county to get that amount up to $85,000. And the intent there is 60% of the $1 million divided by 77 years is $85,000 a year. So that would be the city's portion of that capital investment. Does that kind of make sense? So I'd make sure that if the operating loss didn't amount to that, we would make sure that the county's getting the city's 60% of that capital investment. I know it's kind of a complicated, weird way of saying that, but.
Would we keep AMR for so long and just so many months? And how can we just pay part of that money they want in those few months?
They've given us a $68,000 monthly rate. So I think it looks like I think we need to pay for 3 months. And so we've got everything kind of coming down the path that we should be ready by May 15th. So we are gonna have to pay 3 months at 68,000. It's an odd amount. I don't remember the exact amount, but 68,008.
435.
Yeah. So about $200,000 to AMR and the three to cover for the 3 months, but that's still quite a bit less than the. Did I explain that well enough? Kind of the options we're looking at. I know it's weird. I'm trying to make sure that everybody's got the same kind of fair part of it.
So the $1 million that we pay if we were to do the capital contribution. And there's a loss of our part of it is 100,000. So that would be taken off of that 1 million,
Right.
which we would leave. You know,
$900,000. Yeah.
yeah, and so that would work through the year 7. So what if we have a big credit at the for year 7?
The way in my mind that was just kind of well, you shouldn't have a big credit because if we're going to pay 60% of that regardless. So $85,000 is going to come off of that every year, even if the operating loss isn't that, because if the operating loss is less than that, we will send a check to the county. So at the end of it, the county could have 30% of that left. But at that point, the capital equipment will be fully depreciated and we're gonna have to buy new. So there's no real value to that 30% that would be left. That would just have to be written off as your cost.
Right.
If our annual share at the end of the year is 0, you will still pay us the 85.
Right, yeah. Because since the equipment will be the cities, that's how I make sure that the county's not giving up all of it. So you would have, if we operated efficiently and it kind of goes where we do, there could be a $300,000 balance at the end of 7 years. But at the end of 7 years, those ambulances are going to have to be replaced. And so there's not any value in any of that equipment that was left. So best case scenario for buying the capital, the county will be out $300,000 over 7 years. But if that's the case, there will be no budget impact for 7 years. Well, or the budget impact actually could be positive. Which I think it will be, because if you look at our anticipated. And keep in mind that these anticipated numbers were with a $150,000 payment to our equipment fund. So at the AMR model, if the county pays for the upfront the capital, will be in the black. And so you're likely going to get a $85,000 check from the city. So we kind of recognize that if you do that, you're practically giving us a 0 interest loan. And so we want to be fair and pay back the appropriate portion of that.
And that will be an actual check cut back to us and not just applied to that
Right.
credit. Okay. And would that be done at a certain time every year? Or?
You tell me. I anticipate that probably being an October 1 check, because we'll calculate the year,
I've got.
the July to June year. So when we send you the budget numbers, we'll send you budget numbers, whether they're positive or whether they're negative. And then, however.
I think that works good.
And then at the end of 7 years, where's that? Are you guys going to handle all the capital equipment in-house after that?
Yeah, because we likely will have to buy some capital equipment before the 7 years is out. So we'll add that payment will get into the annual budget. So in like 3 years, when we buy another ambulance, but now instead of $150,000, because we're not spending $1 million at once, that annual payment will probably go down to like 40. And so, my goal is that's kind of why we're doing 2 new and 1 used, so that we can get into a rotation, so that we can build in that capital. And that's why we do that capital funding like that, so we can budget in the capital expense into the annual operating and then reduce our capital cost. And of course, like what the city's found is by keeping up with capital equipment in the last 5 years, we've reduced almost $300,000 in maintenance line items because things aren't broken all the time, especially in solid waste. Trash trucks are maintenance nightmares. Something to do with hydraulics. I'm sure some of y'all are familiar with heavy hydraulic equipment.
Oil on the ground.
Other questions? Like I said, at some point we'll have to discuss how we want to split up the 3-month.
Well, that's what I was gonna ask. I mean,
68.
I like this personally. I think it would give back to the county as a whole. And it would be something that I'd love to hang my hat on as a commissioner for the use of the ARP funds. But I didn't know about the 3 months. Where's that money gonna come from?
You know, and I think that might necessarily, I mean, we need to discuss that, you know, whether we want to split it. In theory, you know, if the county wants to pay the full 3-month charge, because what isn't accounted for right now is the city's operating loss from February through July. So these agreements start July 1. So we're going to have an operating loss between now and June 30th. And so, you know, in my head, initial proposal might be y'all just pay the monthly and we'll eat the operating loss. Or we can get a different interlocal agreement and, you know, negotiate whatever that percentage split for the 3 months should be.
Including your operating loss.
Alicia, you have thoughts on that? From the auditor's standpoint?
No, we were looking at about 204,000, 68 months times, or 68,000 times 3 months. They could also would assume be paid out of ARP, where we do have contingency funds. I would also be comfortable saying that this is considered an emergency, that we could do an amendment.
Have you discussed with the other entities about the 3-month period at all?
A little bit. I mean, Bridges contract technically is through March. With they got one more month
About that.
than we did, so and their portion's already budgeted, so if we split it out, that they would be the easiest to deal with because they're already paying $42,000 a year in subsidy to AMR on a monthly basis. And they in theory, AMR has to cover fridge until March 30, the end of March anyway.
So they've got those 2 months, 42,000 already budgeted.
Which is part of the 68,000, you know, AMR is putting us all in the same boat.
Right.
Of course, if we were ready and could take over February 14th, they, in theory, would have to eat the cost of that 1 month to cover just fridge.
Right.
Do you have any idea what kind of operating loss you're looking at for those through June?
Like I said, through October, it's 208,000. And so it would back off, but most of the revenue, I don't have the revenue starting till June, because even if we take over operations May 14th, you know, your billing's going to be a month behind. So most of that operating loss is just the EMS director. So I'm thinking $60,000 probably in some miscellaneous expenses and his salary and benefits. And like I said, depending on what you wanted to do, we can definitely provide some more information. You know, this is kind of a discussion to kind of narrow down the path that I needed the council to take action to find out for sure, which, I mean, we had a pretty good idea of what everybody kind of wanted to do, but you know, somebody had to take the first official action, and the city has the largest chunk of the calls, and it, you know, was kind of our call to make, because any other service can't make money or can't offset enough money without Borgers calls to make it. You know, of the 1,850 calls, you know, about 1,400 of those are the city of Borger. But like I said, we can be, you know, y'all tell me. I'm the lucky one in this. I'm the paid staff that just, you know, gets to do what, make what y'all decide kind of work or find a way that's good for everybody.
And the city's gonna do all the billing and,
You use third-party billers now, which is, so it is. So that's gotten a lot easier. So what you do is, you know, they'll have a patient report, you know, they'll have their laptops or whatever. And so as you fill out all your patient reporting and all that stuff, when you're done, you hit submit. It goes to QA, QC with the medical director, and it goes to the billing company on the other side.
okay,
And all that cost is factored into our budget numbers, you know, the 3% fees and the software costs and all that stuff. So that has been accounted for.
okay.
So that's gotten a lot better than when the city got rid of it in the 80s. And you had like some girl with a typewriter, you know, and probably carbon paper.
So how difficult do you think it's gonna be to find the extra personnel we need to?
Right now, we've started just conversations with the existing staff. There's at least 4 paramedics that I think are prepared to come over. I think we'll get most of them
From AMR?
from AMR. You know, and one shift, the 5 of the 7 firemen on one shift also they'd be interested in getting their paramedic certification. So I think, you know, there'll definitely be some growing pains starting with, but you know, a lot of AMR staff transition from rural metro to
Right.
the hospital district to AMR. So there's
This
used
is
to
home
it,
for them, yeah.
right.
Yeah,
and as we've talked to them and they've been a little, you know, it's the uncertainty that's kind of, I think, driving them crazy. And I get that, but and it's not that we were ever going to leave them out of the conversation, but it's not right to have a conversation when I don't know what we're going to do yet.
right.
And so now that we know what we're going to do, we're starting to have a little more of those conversations. I know that the chief talked with some of them while they were on the incident the other day. And as they're finding more about our benefits and stuff like that, I think some of the anxiety has come down.
Okay.
And I think they're worried a little less, but it's you know, most humans don't like change naturally. But we'll try to work with them as much as we can now that we've got an EMS coordinator identified and made that job offer. Once we get him in place and some of that, we'll start reaching out to them and making sure that. And like I said, that's operationally, that's why it's nice to have the fire department there, because I mean, even if we're short a paramedic, I've still got a basic that can at least get you to the hospital. And so right now, a lot of times we're short a truck where you don't have any transport capability at all.
But we're gonna house at the hospital like AMR does,
We'll probably keep the spare truck at the fire station.
fire station.
So that way, you know, because if we do need it, and we'll have, that's the other nice thing I think in our operation is having that paramedic coordinators. Remember, he's not working a shift on a truck. So we will have possibly a third paramedic on a shift, or they can come out and pick up that truck too, or can respond while we're waiting on another truck to come back or something like that. So I think operationally, because AMR, all of their supervision comes out of Amarillo.
Mhm. Questions for Garrett?
Appreciate it. I think that satisfies my questions.
I think we've done, I think really everybody's done a pretty good job communicating and talking. I think we've found a pretty fair balanced solution, and I'll be communicating with the judge and we can send some other documents back and forth.
So these 2 drafts, we're just gonna have to make a decision whether or not we want to use our ARP funds for the capital up front.
Yeah, and like I said, if you got any other feedback, I think, you know, we talked at that work session enough. I know, I think I've tried to handle everything. It's got primary and secondary response areas. So we've, you know, covered we will respond anywhere in the county. There is the secondary response requires at least, so like in the Stinnett area, We will go if Stinnett doesn't respond, but we need to dispatch Stinnett first.
Right,
If Stinnett is gonna, if they have a planned shortage, they can call us and set it up and we'll do an automatic response with some pre-planning, meaning, so if they've got vacation or can't cover it and we know, we won't wait for them not to respond. We'll go ahead and first respond, but there's some wordage in there. I don't want to do that for a long period of time without them contributing to
right,
all of our operating loss, or they need to have we want to help them, but if this is going to be long-term, they need to have some skin in the game like the rest of us. So there is that. So I think that's pretty fair. I think I've put in there, we do that for up to 14 days.
right.
Any longer than 14 days, we need to have a deeper discussion. So it covers, I think, probably all of that. We will have to work with right now, we plan on keeping the same response areas that AMR is doing. So we'll go into certain areas of Carson County and Moore County, especially kind of over in Fridge where those kind of overlap. But again, we'll be maintaining some of those call stats. If that starts looking like we're, in those areas a lot, Potter County, Moore County or Carson County need to
Chip in, yeah.
be part of this too. And so I think we're working on updating our GIS, the response area into Potter County and 136 will be variable depending on where the ambulance is. Right now, we still plan on having a truck in Fridge some of the time. So if that truck is available in Fridge, we'd be willing to go a little farther into Potter County. But if we're coming from Porter, AMR probably has a faster response out of Amarillo.
Right.
On that, so still some operational things to work through, but like I said, I think overall we'll be a little more flexible. Luckily, we can be more community minded, being a government entity than a for-profit service provider. So the way it's worded, you got a community event, you want an ambulance, we'll work with everybody to staff it. Because there again, if we do a lot of those and we overstaff it, it impacts the operating loss a little bit, and we all share in that. But that's something, for a community event that we probably all be agreeable for. And then at least we get the actual cost and not the flat rate fee.
Okay, y'all have any other questions for Garrett?
My one question would be, if we do use the AMR funds, we still have to report that.
The ARP funds?
Yes, and if we're not, would we actually be purchasing to have an invoice to have for records if feds come and say, hey, what did you use this $1 million on?
That's why the wording in there is reimbursement.
Okay,
So we would submit all our actual paid invoices with the paid record, knowing that the ARP funds can be used as a grant.
okay,
And so I've used the same wording that we use for all of our other grant funding, that it would be reimbursement. So the money will come out of the city, and then we'll have a paid invoice with a paid check stub to submit to the county. Then when you cut your reimbursement check, you can put your check with our invoice and our check.
And that works for you? Okay,
yes, and I think I did read that it would top at whatever actual expenditures are.
Right, it is worded that it is for up to $1 million, but no more than actual expenses.
Yes, that would be good.
I've worked with accountants long enough to kind of know how they are, so I try to, try to take care of what I thought they would need.
Okay, any other questions? Yeah, we're gonna have to make some decisions at our next meeting, so we'll get that on the agenda and make some decisions.
And if you'd like to, what I might work on I might send you all a draft for the 3-month, give you options on the 3-month too, and then you'll have the options for both sides of that, and you can take action on
Right, everything.
both sides of that.
Well, I appreciate it.
That sounds good.
That sounds
Yeah.
good.
Yeah, that'd be good.
All right, great. Garrett, can I have one of your presentations?
You can have the whole stack if
Okay,
you like.
thank you. I will give this to you, so you'll have all of that.
I know you have this form. Is this what we have in the ARP fund?
All right, thanks a bunch, Garrett.
She sent out an email.
Well, and y'all.
That's what I was looking at.
Too easy to, so you can corner me if you have any other questions.
Yes, we do know where you are.
Thank you.
Oh,
Did y'all have a question?
I don't know if it's a question. I don't know how much, I'm looking at the reports and I have been, and I don't know how much we have ARP left total.
1,900,000. Something, is that right, Lisa?
Yes.
Okay, so this that you sent is not the, okay, so I was looking at what you, the charts and stuff you've been sending. And I got lost in the, what we obligated to.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
So that's with, after all of our obligations that we've already made, we still have that.
About one.
Okay. All right, thank
And
you.
that's including the interest that we've earned
Yeah,
on the funds. that have-
because without interest is 1.6. Okay.
Okay. Um. So we skipped around, we did that executive session prior to hearing Garrett's update, and then, so we were actually on item number 9, which is any action from our executive session, but no action at this time. All right, item 10, consider and or approve our Tyler SOS agreement. So we finally got the agreement actually from Tyler, which took forever. And Craig has reviewed it, and the only change was just a clerical change in one of the sections. And I've already emailed Tyler and brought that to their attention. And she said they would send it to their legal and get back with me on that change. And everything else was just some things that Craig pointed out that we need to have in our contracts, and Tyler has provided those things. So it looks good, other than just this one section that they referenced the wrong. Do what?
No, that's what you wanted to change.
Just on page 2, section B, the warranty for the software, they referenced section C8, and they should have referenced section C9 instead. They referenced the wrong section. And so they said when I talked to Sarah, emailed her, she said that she would get it to legal and get those changed and get the contract back to us. So it's nothing significant. Doesn't make any difference to any of the services provided or anything.
The
So
only thing that I was gonna ask is, are we gonna keep that defendant access on exhibit B? If not, we need to make sure that when we sign it, we remove that exhibit.
right. And that was
That's if you're taking payments, but I don't believe,
we're not taking payments.
yeah, we don't take payments.
So yeah, she said we could take that out.
Right. So I just wanted to make sure that you remembered, once we sign the agreement, not to send that with the signed agreement.
Right. Once I get that back from her.
Okay.
So I think as the contract is submitted to us now, with that one change, we can decide today, if y'all have had a chance to look at that. Craig's okay with everything except that one thing. Once they get that changed, and we need to hear a motion to approve the Tyler contract
I'll make a motion to approve the Tyler contract
with that change.
with the change, yeah.
Okay.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor? Okay, thanks. Thank you. All right, item 11, consider and or approve Kimberly Garcia's bond in the amount of $10,000. It's just her bond for working in the treasurer's office.
I'll make a motion that we approve the bond for Kimberly Garcia for $10,000.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and second. Any further discussion? All in favor? All right, item 12 is to consider and or approve our interlocal agreement with the city of Borger Small Unmanned Aircraft Systems. This is the drone agreement. And Craig has reviewed that, doesn't have any issues with it. Anybody have any comments?
So when we talked about the ARP, at the ARP presentation, we talked about the potential of county agents using, like, having their pilot and being able to use it as well, talking about dual ownership.
Mhm.
And in this, the city owns and operates it, and if the county decides to terminate the contract, the city owns it completely. So is there, I guess, if there's not gonna be dual, like possible of use or like that workout between emergency management groups. I think I personally have an issue with, I don't understand why Borger doesn't just, I know you said budgetary wise, it's not feasible, but why not wait and put it in the thing and get you, like, purchase it on your own and have it just solely for your use?
We could, the intent behind this was to expand the use of it out into the county and everything. Part of the problem with having multiple agencies involved is the insurance. If something goes wrong on that thing, we can't have it, the insurance won't pay out on it. So like if we had a county agent flying the drone, some catastrophic thing happened, the drone was damaged. Per this agreement, the city's responsible for the 18,000 to replace it. And if the county agent's flying it, we can't make an insurance claim. It has to be a city employee who's also met the Part 107 requirements and all that to be able to fly it.
And so far, are you the only person?
Yes, ma'am. We have about 4 more pilots that are in training right now.
That are in
working
training.
towards their certification.
Mhm.
Yes, ma'am.
I guess the only thing I'd like to see different is if, so in there it said that if the county terminates the contract, then you guys have sole, you just keep everything and it's just. But I mean, it's y'all's sole possession. If there, and it talked about emergencies, that if we called you up. If you had another emergency in Borger, that would take precedent and we wouldn't be able to use it up in the county. So I think what I would like to see is if I would like to see the county have some type of protection that if we don't feel like we're getting. I know it's probably minimal that this is going to happen, but if it's a contract, I'd like to see more protection that if there's a certain amount of times where we don't get that access, we can. The city technically terminates the contract and then we get the drone. Just because, I mean, I think there's not a lot of protection on that, that if there are dual emergencies and we say, well, we need you, you say, well, we got our own emergency here. If that happens a couple of times and there's no protection on our end of, if we say, well, we need to terminate that contract, we just lose everything.
Well, and that's, in the agreement, if the city were to terminate, we return all the equipment to the
Right.
county. And vice versa. So it's kind of a two-way street there.
What I was saying is like, if the county decided due to the city's not inability, but
The clause you might want is that we'd probably be okay with letting the county operate if we add that any damage that occurs while the county's operating it is on you.
yeah,
And that, because that's the main holdup here is because the way this agreement is structured is we're responsible for all maintenance and protection of it. So that's why that is. So I don't have a problem allowing a county authorized flyer to fly it as long as some terminology, some conditions are added there and you understand that we're not required to provide insurance or to replace it should anything occur when it's being operated by the agent of the county. As it is now, the city's insurance will cover all of that, but because of that, they have to be.
And because we don't own it, we wouldn't be able to insure it through our insurance. So any damage that happened while the county was operating would be completely out of pocket.
right. That one I wasn't so like married to. What I was talking about is like if the city, like say we had 3 emergencies and the city said, well, we're too busy. And then we say, well, we need to get rid of that. We need to terminate the contract. Then you guys just keep everything. I think there needs to be some, I would like some terminology in there that says if the county feels the city's not doing what we deem appropriate, there might be like the possession still reverts to us since we purchased it.
Well,
I don't think that happened.
The problem is what criteria do we use? And so the
Yeah, right.
city's less likely to agree to those criteria because in theory, an action of
However
this
you feel, yeah.
body
Right.
would be enough to say we're not meeting your goals and then therefore we lose it. So.
That's just my concern on the protection of that I don't think that'll happen, but I mean, anytime you're drafting contracts, you gotta have to.
Well, like I said, and that's the give and take in this particular deal, either we're okay with it or we want to go our separate ways. And that's the I'll have to.
Anybody else have any questions or want to make a motion?
Is it more like, could we make it to where, you got priority this, this time and county gets priority next time? you know.
No, it would.
I mean, I
be-
think every incident's gonna be its own.
And the priority issue is more for staffing than it is like our emergency trumping your emergency, because we can prioritize emergencies. The question is for us is what if our licensed pilot is not available? And
Yeah,
that's the
two
concern.
AM.
2 AM is not concerned, but like, as it stands at this moment,
You're the
if
only
I'm
one.
in Fort Worth,
Right,
I'm gonna have a real hard time flying from.
Right.
Fort Worth.
Right.
Well, that's what I'm saying.
That's the only
I
concern
mean,
there.
we've talked about, not burning bridges and stuff. I always try to look at that. How do we protect it to where 6 months from now, you're at training or something, and then, county gets pissed off and the city gets pissed off, and we just kind of protect things like this, these little things. I don't want to see it in the larger things like the EMS thing blow up. And so I always just try to think of how do we protect it on both ends, especially in contracts where you hope it doesn't happen, but it's just there laid out black and white.
Getting other pilots certified.
Yes, sir. We're working on that right now. We're still pretty young in our program here. I mean, we're less than a year of when we officially started this program. So we're trying to build steam and improve, which is add more pilots so we have more availability and everything. It's just, we can't expect to be 5 years into a program, in the first 12 months kind of.
Right.
So,
And he's here before y'all because I was a mean, nasty city manager last year and denied his budget request for this size of drone because the response numbers inside the city only didn't justify.
Yeah.
And like I said, it's easy for us to take to eat the people, we're paying for the people already.
Yeah.
And it's just kind of,
Well, see, that was the problem I had with the ARP thing. Now we're buying a drone for a jurisdiction that, it doesn't really justify the numbers now. Because the county really doesn't have the numbers needed either.
well, my argument with that is the county generally has incident types that are more beneficial from a drone, like large wildfires and fleeing felons in the
Right.
middle of big open fields. In the city, it's a little tighter for a lot of those things than in the
Yeah,
county.
and that's
So,
why, I mentioned just getting our own, have it in-house for the county for those purposes. But
No, and I think, like I said, that's the elected officials
Yeah.
debate is which way is it,
right.
I think you can look at history and see how much that's been used. I don't think it's gonna be a problem. Or is the city having it, covering it with their insurance. I don't see any problem with that. I don't think it's gonna be used that much that we have to worry about it. That's my opinion.
Well, not thinking it happens, when it happens, it's better to have those protections in place. So when it does happen, you hope it doesn't, but that's why we're here.
anybody else have any? So. We have the interlocal agreement as it stands. Does anyone want to make a motion on the agreement as it stands? Or do you need changes? Do we need any changes?
I'm okay with the way it is.
I am too.
Is that a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve the interlocal agreement for the small unmanned aircraft systems with the city border.
And I'll second it.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Okay, motion carries. All right, item 13 is to consider and or approve our the National Weather Service to operate the National Weather Service transmitter at the Stinnett Tower site. So, and we do have that agreement that Craig has looked at and approved. I think,
This is the same thing we've been talking about for the last. couple
yeah, we finally got the
I move
contract.
to accept this contract.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion and second. Any further discussion? All in favor? Okay. All right, item 14 is to consider and or approve the Panhandle Regional Housing Finance Corporation General and Note Litigation Certificate of Hutchinson County. It sounds super ominous, but it's that Panhandle Regional Housing Finance Corporation that all the top 26 are part of. The sponsoring counties of the corporation are not in any way liable for the payment of the bonds. They're wanting to go or give some bonds in a development of a low-income housing development in Potter County. So this top 26 is all part of this Regional Housing Finance Corporation. Craig has reviewed this, doesn't have any issues with it.
I move to approve the Panhandle Regional Housing Financial Corporation and no litigation certification of Hutchinson County.
I'll second it.
Okay, we have a motion and second. Any further discussion? All in favor? Okay.
You got the next one.
All right, item 15 is to consider and or approve the Guardian RFIS system agreement. This was the pipe system that Monica talked to us about and brought to the Commissioners Court for an ARP project that we approved. Craig has reviewed the agreement and does not have any issues with it.
Make a motion, we approve the Guardian contract.
You're fast, man.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and second. Any further discussion? All in favor? Okay. All right, item 16 is to consider and or approve the train maintenance contract. This is just the yearly update on the train maintenance agreement
Quarterly and annual maintenance on the chiller.
on the chiller.
And air handlers, which is, we do every year.
Same price.
It's went up a little bit,
Yeah, it always goes up.
which is, everything's went up.
Right.
And again, Craig has reviewed it and doesn't have any issues.
I'll make a motion to approve the maintenance contract with Train.
Second.
Okay, we have motion and second. Any further discussion? All in favor? Okay. All right, item 17 is to consider and or approve janitorial services for Baker Annex, Library, Museum, and Fritz Annex. Chris, I'll let you talk to that. Okay.
So I sent out the calculation on based on our part-time hours that have been needed. And we put it part-time at $12.50 an hour. That's just a calculation on based on kind of what we're getting currently. It's less than the amount. Get that to open up as a spreadsheet.
Or do you, there's that stuff.
See how you broke it out. So obviously it comes in, right, it comes in less than what we have remaining budgeted for Holvey. It doesn't include the cleaning products. So we'll each, Dwight, Gary and I will have to deal with the cleaning products, cleaning supplies with our staff
And
member.
how much did Hobie buy all the cleaning supplies?
Most of them, yeah, they're contracted
A
out.
lot of them.
Yeah, except for just random things.
They picked up certain things. We picked up the other stuff.
Okay,
They paid for gloves, cleaning solution, mops, mop handles, cart. I did talk to Hovey's son. He contacted me and he said that he would like for us to buy some of that stuff that they had. And I said, well, the cart's old, the wheels aren't falling off. And he said, well, I'll just donate that. I said, okay, good, because we need a cart. Those carts are normally $185 for a brand new one. So we're going to get the car that looks like. Now, as far as I've got to meet with Edith and see about, mop panels and mops and
All that stuff they're leaving.
yeah.
They're leaving all the
I
stuff.
told him we did not want the vacuum cleaners. Not for me.
Okay.
I don't know about you,
Yeah, he's leaving everything.
but you're going to have to pay for it.
No, we're not paying for it. All
He
the
just said
supplies
he
are
was just
purchased
gonna
and we're
leave
just
it.
leaving.
Really? When did you make that decision?
Well, Edith had that conversation with me. I mean, if they're gonna terminate the contract, that's part of
No, it's not. That's their equipment.
yeah, I already talked with Edith. They're leaving all the cleaning supplies in that.
Well,
library.
Edith said,
Whenever he talks with you about your annex, that's up to you, but all the stuff in the library and the museum's staying after January.
well, that's kind of what Edith wanted, but she's not the boss. So I don't know. If we get it all for free, that's great. We can get the card, but I'll have to check on the other stuff. I told him we didn't want the vacuum cleaners. They look like they're out of the 40s. So he said they're great vacuum cleaners, but they're always blowing up over there.
Ours work good.
But my part of it, I think 4 hours for the janitor at the annex would work out just for the four hours.
4 hours.
4 days,
316.
4 hours a day,
Uh-huh.
4 days a week. And that'd still be under the budget. And I'll just have to see about the equipment, and Chris is right, we're gonna have to pay for more stuff. You know, I've already checked with our supplier on the other stuff to see if we could get it, and we can get it through them, so. We'll just have to do a little bit more buying. So if that's in agreement with everybody, Chris, is that okay with you?
I mean,
Okay. Well, I think with what we got, it should be under what the budget is already.
Identified people.
yeah, I've kept my,
Part-time.
from the museum, she's gonna do the library as well, because that's just 10 hours for her for the week, 5 at each
Okay,
facility. And
I'm hiring somebody.
I'm keeping the same one because everybody loved her and loved the work that she did, so.
so. We need some kind of motion.
I don't know what, I mean, what kind of motion does that entail when we're hiring 3 part-timers with a budgeted item already?
I have
So,
in one.
well, we're gonna have to do some budget amendments because right now it says a kind of a
Contract.
regular and not a payroll expenditure. So I can work up the budget a little bit, so y'all can approve next time. Basically, because we're just doing line item transfers and we're not having to add to the budget.
Right,
It'll be easier to do and I can figure out how much needs to go in each line. Right now, we have maintenance payroll that the courthouse that Eddie and Roxanne get paid out of. I'm assuming we can just keep those line items and just add some money into there and put those into that same line item. And then if we want to separate it out at budget time, we can do that.
I'd like next year so each plant, we know
Right.
what we're spending.
And I agree.
Cause if Chris goes crazy, I don't want it to reflect on me.
Museum,
Right.
they can spend, it's gotta be clean. Yeah,
Yeah,
But we can budget off of the hours that y'all presented, 16 hours a week at the annex, 10 hours for the Borger Museum and Library, and then 4 hours for the Fritsch building. So I'll just do a budget amendment based on those numbers. And then it looks like, so the remaining budget will be 26,224. If you take out those hours of part-time work, it's 15, so that will leave about 10,800 for savings and supplies. We can take that 10,000 and
put it in
maybe
our
up a little
supplies.
bit into your janitorial supplies. So that you've got it on hand if you need to purchase any vacuum cleaners or stuff like that.
I would, not in regards to the budget, because we'll deal with that at the next meeting, but I'd like to move to authorize Commissioner Alexander to oversee the hiring and staffing of the custodian for the annex building. Authorize Commissioner Chris Prock to hire and staff the library and museum, Borger Library and Museum, and Commissioner Dwight Kirksey or Precinct 2 to authorize the hiring of a custodian for the Fritsch Library.
I'll second that.
Okay, we have a motion and second. Any further discussion on that? All in favor? Okay, good job, y'all.
I'll just say that once you do whoever you need to hire, they need to see Amy.
Yes. make sure. So they get.
Do
what
we
they-
just show, do we just show them a picture of her? Say, here, they
They need to go visit with her. Yes.
Just
to
joke.
Get their paperwork done.
Before the 31st.
All right, item 18 is to consider and or approve amending the purchasing policy on vehicle mileage. Ben?
Was looking through this. The mileages that are put out for guidelines, law enforcement is 150,000 miles and 175,000 for non-law enforcement, and those are not really in line with where we typically trade vehicles.
Where do we typically trade them at?
Well, they vary and sometimes law enforcement's passed down to another department or
Right.
bridge is passed down. And it's, they'd probably be kept more than what I'm gonna say, like if law enforcement is 120,000 miles, other departments 140. A big part of the time, they're gonna have more miles than that, but you need the opportunity, if you need to get rid of a vehicle, that you can still get rid of them. And not run the mileage on them, so.
Okay.
Uh,
So your proposal is to maybe change that to law enforcement 120 and
law
All other
enforcement,
140,
120,000
140.
miles, and all other departments, 140,000 miles. And odds are they're gonna have more than that, but that would still give you the option to go ahead and trade when you need to.
Okay,
okay.
I'll make that my motion.
I second it.
Okay, we have a motion and second to make those changes. Any further discussion? All in favor? Okay.
Yes, was you in favor? Chris, was you in favor?
Yes.
So we had our hands up and down too. please. Thank you, Ben. All right, item 19, consider and or approve amending the personnel policy on overtime for emergency response.
That's in
Mr.
the
Kirksey.
Dropbox, Dropbox, I highlighted the suggested amendment. One of the things that was brought to our attention, which makes perfect sense, is that when our road and bridge or even someone else in the courthouse, if we have a holiday that falls on a Monday, for example, a holiday falls on a Monday, they get 10 hours for that day. All employees do. But then let's say, and it is funny because we did the scenario about it and then it actually happened on Thursday. But so in order to get comp time, our time and a half, the employee has to physically work 40 hours. But what do you do if that employee didn't physically work 40 hours, but only work 30 plus the 10 for the holiday? And then they get called out. And so they actually work quote unquote 34 hours physically, and then they get the 10. What do we do with that? And there was a little bit of misunderstanding and miscommunication. We communicated originally in theory that those employees wouldn't get anything until they earned their 40 hours. Well, after doing some research, we uncovered that they'd still get compensated. It would just be straight pay, which means if they work 40 or work 34 hours physically, and then you add their 10, that's 44 hours, they would only get straight 4 hours, not time and a half, but just straight 4 hours comp time. That's actually standard practice everywhere. So we have it stated in comp time. You just kind of have, it's kind of confusing. And so all I did after speaking with TAC is throw a policy in there. I had to write it from scratch. So I really would like y'all's input on it. If you had time to look at it, the wording, because Rita said it doesn't hurt to have that in there, but it's not necessary, but we want to have it.
Read that.
Yes. Says if an employee's 40 hours have not been physically met within a work week due to a holiday, an employee is called into work due to the emergency or special need of the county, the employee will be awarded straight compensation for the actual hours worked. And then in parentheses, it says the employee worked physically 34 hours, basically the scenario I just gave you, that holiday week, and was awarded 10 for the holiday day, totaling 44 hours. The said employee will receive 4 hours towards their compensation. Just straight 4 hours, not time and a half, just straight 4 hours.
What's defined as emergency? And who,
Yeah,
anytime over,
yeah, we don't have that specified in our,
Anytime that they get called out to
Can I speak
work.
on this too?
yeah,
yes, yeah, of
Okay.
course.
So on this, for the emergencies, I believe that there's other special events that would happen. So I think that in the policy that we should, have that on there as well. However, I was unaware that this was even coming here for the agenda. I feel that on the changes in the employee policy, I think that it should go in front of the committee and then the committee and then maybe send it to even TAC to look at. And then bring it to the court for decision. So, I mean, that's the way, I felt like I was bypassed in this.
I think in the future, I think with the development of policy committee, that will be the process that we handle any changes in
Right.
personnel policy. But this was just kind of something that was brought up that wasn't really working the
Right.
way we had
exactly.
changed it.
And yes, and I was aware of that it wasn't working, but I think that in the wording.
Do we need to define emergency? Is that what you're saying?
Who's gonna define?
Yeah.
emergency? Who is, so I
Did
think.
Rita have any suggestions for that, or do you know?
Yeah, we didn't talk, or I didn't talk to her about what is an
Right.
emergency.
Yeah, like who defines that?
What I did
Is
is
that defined
Amy,
by us?
Amy
or-
texted me and said that, what about like the district clerk's office and they have to come in and do some extra stuff. That's why I changed it to what our policy says or other. So it's not just emergency,
Or
it's
special.
for special needs.
Special name.
Well, yeah, because the tag office
Yeah,
does that a
And so
lot.
that's why it's in there. The confusing part, and I agree with Amy, I think I would be. We needed something to cover last week or first week of January. That we didn't really think about, or there was some confusion within the ranks. And we didn't want our employees to think that we're asking them to come to
And not get
work and not get compensated. And that's actually illegal. You can't
Right.
ask your employees to do anything. So I am cool with tabling this to have more eyes look at it. The confusion part is the policy we do have says that if they have to work a holiday, then the floating holiday. So it's kind of confusing and just kind of making, this is just an extra layer of, so what do we do on those situations? Because the policy states that they would take whatever hours they worked and apply it to another day off or towards their day off, and they have 90 days to do that. So it's kind of it's just should be reviewed again with that, but we need something in place to handle the 1st of January.
Because it's
That's
just
the past.
time. So anything is straight time, not comp time. So they are still getting compensated, just not in time and a half. So this is necessary that we do need to have it updated and amended on this. However, I feel that we don't need it just under emergencies. I think we need to change that to emergencies and other events or something on that. So they're not thinking that it's just an emergency. And that's the only reason that I'm gonna get
Right.
time
Right.
with the whole, so.
When's our next holiday week? Be on
President's Day, February.
February, the
19th or
late part of
something like
20th.
Yeah, we'll have a meeting before then.
Yeah, we'll have the 13th.
So I know we don't have to move or table something, but I moved to table this to have it part of our policy subcommittee for discussion and review.
Yeah, the next holiday is the 20th. So we meet on the 13th.
But I would like to go on record, if our employees have to work, they will be compensated.
Yes.
We will make sure that that happens because legally we have,
Straight time.
yeah, at straight time. We'll just get the wording to match what we're doing.
Okay, so you're gonna call a meeting of the policy?
Yes.
Okay. All
Thank
right. Okay, so
We do have to vote, right, to table.
I don't
Yes,
know.
we do.
Yeah,
We do.
I'll second.
Yeah, we have-
Sometimes you table.
we have a
sometimes
motion
you
and
don't.
a
Second
second to
motion.
table this and all in favor? Okay.
And I would like to say thanks, Amy and Dwayne and all y'all for asking about it and looking into it and being patient as we were trying to process it.
Right, item 20 is to consider and or approving the ARP grant projects. We have 2 projects. The first one is from Judge Wysong, Justice of the Peace Precinct 2, requesting $37,200 for some safety measures to be put in place.
Can I
Judge?
just say something before we start?
Yes,
I know that at one point we had discussed doing it quarterly. Are we not gonna do that?
we never made a decision on that.
Okay. That was just my question.
Okay, so I'm here requesting the funds for a project for the JP2 office. What that will entail would be to install a bullet resistant wall, transaction window, door, and another side window for the office as it stands right now. Most of you are probably aware, but so from the front doors into the JP2 office, we're the first point of contact. And so should something that happen, pray that never does, but if it were to happen, the clerk there's about a 2-second reaction time. So that really leaves no time if we had something bad happen at the annex for that clerk to get out, maybe a back door, or even make that decision of what would happen. So I feel like we really need some safety measures in place.
If the incident started there at your office, you would have no protection. We talked about that. I've been in there and looked at it.
So where are we thinking about the bulletproof glass?
So right when you walk into the first office, we have that counter there.
Yeah,
And
in the
so,
half door.
yes, so the door will be where that half door is.
Mhm.
The countertop, they're gonna cut that back a little bit and they're gonna add the wall on the customer side of that so that we can still have the shelving behind.
Right,
It's gonna go up from right there.
okay,
So I think they're gonna have to move our vents back a little bit and our first row of lights forward a little bit. And then
What
that
about-
window?
what about that big window that's right there?
Yes, so the window facing the outside wall,
Mhm.
that will also have to be replaced.
With bulletproof glass?
Yes,
Okay.
because the rest of it, it's the cinder block concrete wall.
Right,
So it can stay, but that window will have to be replaced and then that wall put up there. And we did kind of discuss maybe just making a transaction window where that window is.
right,
And then we wouldn't have to build that wall there and everything. But the only issue with that is there's no foyer area of its own there. So people would be having to conduct their business out in the hallway.
yeah.
With the public and with us doing a lot of truancy and juvenile things. I just don't feel like that's probably the best option.
Right, right.
So as Gary is your commissioner that oversees your facility, what did y'all talk, is this something you're all kind of on the same page?
We've already done this for adult probation.
Thinking-
We've done it for the county attorney's office. And I can tell you, there's gonna be another one coming up for juvenile too. You know how the situations are now. Doesn't matter if it's a juvenile or an adult, there's a risk there. I think it's probably for their betterment, to go ahead and make it where it's safe. Under the circumstances of today. It's unfortunate that we have to spend that much money, but they're doing it everywhere.
And we kind of had a discussion whenever I first had thought about doing it for the office. We talked about it initially. A comment was made maybe about purchasing a pistol and learning to shoot it and things like that for protection. But I mean, obviously that's not going to be,
No, that's,
yeah, for obvious reasons. I mean, that's not a good.
Is this general contractor the same people that did the
Yeah.
other 2 offices?
CGC, yeah.
And it looks really nice. I don't know if any of you have seen it, but it does look really nice in the adult probation and county attorney's office.
Yeah, there's a lot more to it than you just think, they've got to have push buttons for the doors to open them. And just like the county attorney's office, they have push buttons for both secretaries because not both of them are there all the time.
Yes, and so that's optional to have that or not, and he has that in here. That is an additional $650, which we do not have budgeted into that original bid. At the time, the clerk would have to just get up and open that door if anybody were to come in. We were weighing the options as to whether it would be
Right, something that you needed.
Or
worth,
not,
yes, worth
yeah.
that extra
$50 of her getting up and opening the door or being able to just hit that button and allow people to come in.
I mean, this might sound lazy, but if she's having to get up and let them in, that defeats the purpose of the bulletproof glass.
Yeah.
No, it doesn't. She'll be behind it the whole time.
Well, I see what you're saying. So
She
yes,
has to
the
open
people
the
that
door
we
to
would,
let them in. There's
Yeah,
two
yeah,
interfaces.
yeah. So I would add the 600 back into it.
I mean, if you're gonna buzz, is she gonna pay attention to who she's buzzing in?
Yeah,
Or is she just gonna hear a ding and open the door and then the.
Well, she
guy
buzzed them
walks
in.
I,
in.
She's
I
still-
can't think that she wouldn't know. She wouldn't buzz anyone in that she didn't.
No,
Even if she did though, she's behind that. I mean, if
Yeah.
you're having to let them in, you're right there.
yeah, it's pointless to have bulletproof glass if you're standing in the lobby with.
But I honestly think you should probably go ahead and include that remote button access simply because if she's on the phone and say the sheriff comes down or even Angelica, and says, hey, it's me, she can hit the buzzer, not have to get up, and it's just be way more convenient for her.
But she will be behind the glass regardless.
Yes,
Okay.
yeah.
yes.
I thought that it was just gonna be a door to let them into the office.
No, they'll have a little foyer area once they come in, but she's completely behind everything.
Right.
Unless she lets them in, nobody can get in there.
Right.
The doors.
Yeah, I think you need that.
Every time, and unless
Yeah.
it's opened or if we add that remote
Yeah.
switch, then otherwise there's no access.
Well, if we've done it for one,
Well, I think we should include
yeah.
it.
So I move to approve, I can't even, my eyes jump. Where am I? My goodness. Oh, it's,
the ARP project.
Yeah. Yes,
I saw. I move to approve the use of the ARP funds in addition to the $600 for the remote, the $650 remote entry in the amount of 37. Well, no, then that wouldn't be 37. That would be, anyway, I approve it.
it's
second
this amount, it's
Yeah.
this amount right here. It's the 37.2 plus the 650.
Okay.
So 37,000.
850.
850. Yeah. All right, so we have a motion. Did I hear a second? And a second, any
Way to mess
further
that.
discussion?
So I have a question
Yes.
about this. In the past, on the other ones that we approved, I didn't go back and look at these. Is this a sole source provider or did we get bids? Because this is above the threshold that we
In the
have set.
purchasing policy.
We found out there's not very many people that do that.
I think there were some, they were having some difficulty finding anyone that would be willing to do it. Alicia, do you see a problem with this or do they need to get other bids or?
Under the 50,000.
It is under what the law
Purchasing
says,
policy
but our
states-
purchasing policy says,
Recommended.
yeah, it's recommended. But since we have had good luck with this company actually doing the work, can we move forward with this or does she need to get another bid?
I'm okay with moving forward since we've got in all actuality, it probably should all been done at one time. Everybody.
Right, everybody, yeah,
Would've been a lot
yeah,
cheaper.
Oh, yeah, yeah,
yeah.
I don't know about that.
yeah, probably would, yeah.
I mean, your
think-
biggest.
I think it would be prudent to reach out to other contractors and see if they would give a bid, if they're gonna, refuse to. But I think we do need to do our due diligence just to make sure that there is nobody else available at a better price.
The biggest part of it is the bulletproof walls, which is Kevlar, which is expensive, and the bulletproof glass. But that's a lot of it. Of course, there's a lot more to it. If you've ever seen the electrical stuff at the annex, it's like this. I mean, it's hard to
And in
figure out what's
actuality,
what.
This is also qualified for an engineer. Because it's over $20,000.
So I will look into getting more bids. To be completely honest, I just checked with the county attorney and the adult probation, and I asked them who they went through, and they were the ones that gave me that information for the bid. And so then I reached out.
Since then, we've set that policy, the purchasing policy in effect, since we had approved those, so. Not saying I'm against it, but
Right, yeah, no, that's totally fine. I will reach out and see if I can't get any other.
if
bids.
there's gonna be, and I'd like to say, if we're gonna have somebody else in the annex that's gonna do this, I would like to get both of them combined into one bid to see what they would, not just you and then juvenile, you and juvenile, I would like you to get both of those, get their eyes on it, because it all, and when you get them in bulk, it's always a little cheaper.
Right.
So I mean, if we have another one
But if
coming down the
we-
pipe, we need to get on that and get that done and see about it.
It's
And
gonna,
if it's over 50,000.
Yeah, it's gonna definitely-
You have to go out.
Item.
And
Well, I mean,
and we're gonna
the
have,
project that's
We're gonna
already
split
scheduled, you're hitting that anyway, because you cannot say, well, we're gonna do this as a project and do this as a project just to get around the $50,000 bidding.
it's all at one facility.
And so if you know that juvenile probation is coming up and that's something that you want to do as a project, then that we have to go out for a sealed bid.
which we could, if juvenile's gonna jump on that, then we could get that
And that
done.
probably should have been the case with the county attorney and adult probation as well.
We could
But
go
they
out
were-
for bids and revisit this on the 13th. Hopefully,
Well, if we're gonna
Does
go
that
out
give
for a
us
sealed
enough?
bid, you have to advertise for 2 weeks.
2
You
weeks.
can't open the bids for 14 days. You have
Oh,
to have
that's-
the first advertisement and the opening 14 days apart.
Yeah, no, that doesn't give us enough time, so I guess we'd have to revisit it on the 27th if we went out for bids like in the next day or two.
Okay.
Sorry.
Well, and we
Posted for 2
we
weeks.
can't even do that. I mean, technically, you would have to have a engineer, because it's over 20,000, come and look at it and develop the best, develop the specs to even go out. And I know that's not what y'all want to hear, but that's the
So-
law.
You might get it in a few months.
So, okay.
For all the new engineering,
Well,
it's new stuff.
Thanks,
that we have
Amanda.
to have.
Thank you.
more money down the
I
tube.
like the bathrooms.
Yeah, more money down the tube.
Okay, all right, the other project that we have is from Dwayne Chisholm for some radios. Dwayne?
Okay, this is to try, this $21,711 is to try to resolve the radio issues that we've had ever since we switched to the new system. To give you all a little rundown, what happened, we switched to the new system, the 700 system. I've got 53 mobile radios. And I was furnished with 23. So that left the other units on a different radio system than the new radio system. When we first did this, me and Jerry have had many conversations. Some of the radios we have, we're supposedly going to have the possibility to transition to the new system. You correct me if I'm wrong with something, Jerry. We thought a lot of them would have that capability of doing that. Well, after running the serial numbers, and Jerry did a lot of work on it, we figured out that that's not going to happen. So we're in a situation right now to where half of my road and bridge units are on the 700 system. Half of them are on a totally different system, a VHF system. They're not communicating well together. So, and I mean, ideally, we would like to put new mobile units in these other 23 units, but the price is unbelievable what these radios have went to. And then availability, I don't think is even available anymore. So Jerry brought a couple of these docking stations, which is what these are. And what it does, it utilizes the handheld radios we were furnished. The employee gets on the machine, slides his radio into the docking station, and then you have the same capability as a mobile radio. It's got the distance, it's got the clarity, it's got an external speaker, it's got every external antenna. So we're getting some real good reception on them all over the county, it seems like.
And you don't have to leave that mobile unit in the
Exactly.
equipment.
That's another bonus to this, and not only the price, is that we don't have that $10,000 radio sitting in that unit on the side of the road all the time. It's just, after researching it several different directions, this is the cheapest, most affordable route we came up with getting the problem fixed. And this will put Road and Bridge totally on the new system. We can completely, we have, VHF has its own tower and everything, which we can completely do away with that once we get to where we communicate on one channel again. So then this system, Jerry bought a couple of these, we put one in, we've been using it about, 3 months? And we've had real good luck with it. It's worked good, the success is good, because the problem with the mobile unit, just the handheld, is that the battery goes dead. You're in a spot where it won't reach, but as soon as you put it in this docking station, it charges, it keeps it charged. It boosts the wattage of the output and everything. So we've had good luck with it. And I think this would fix our problems with it.
Are you requiring your guys to carry the handhelds with them?
No,
I've never seen one of them have one with them.
not right now. They carry them. If they want to carry them, they carry them. They have them at home. But when we go to this system, they would, you'll have to have, I imagine what we'll do when we go to this system is Jerry said he could get me a charging base for the barn. And most of them will just leave theirs at the barn. And you can just grab them in the morning. If you're going to be running one of those machines, put it in and it'll be ready to go. It's not perfect, but it's a whole lot better than what we have now, or
No
trying to
communication.
pursue 23 mobile units. I think, what do they cost now, Jerry?
About 8,000 pieces.
8,000 a piece for those.
Of course, the main thing is vehicles or equipment that goes on fires, they already got fixed mount radios anyway.
Yes, the firefighting equipment does have the fixed units, but if the guys are mowing, like right now, the mowing tractors don't have them, the belly dumps don't have them. So if they're mowing or hauling cleachy or something like that, or don't have the capability of them hearing what's going on to see if I need more units to come, or if they need to quit that and go get another unit. We do a lot of stuff by cell phone, but that's not always perfect either. So.
In the new radio system, there is a channel that was built for just road and bridge communications. So just their basic operations to communicate, to put water down or dirt here or whatever. They use that, the new system for that purpose as well. It's a channel just for them.
Any other questions?
What other department is gonna ask for radio stuff? I'm just joking.
Well, that's what I was about to say. Is this, I mean, it seems like Motorola, this is like the fourth time we've said this is gonna be it. And then we have like something else we figure out. Are there any other departments that are like meant, and this has nothing to do with you, but are there any other departments that we're anticipating having issues or stating?
Radio
Yeah.
system. seems
Everybody
around
else
okay.
has got
Just keeps
the,
coming back.
Yeah,
Radios.
that is.
everyone else is equipped, right?
Nobody's brought anything else up to.
Okay.
So this was that bought the radios, we were putting in them firefighting equipment, anything that was gonna respond to assist in any emergency type operations. That's why we prioritize 4 mobile units to go, and all those which has those capabilities. And so once we got into this side of it, where we're looking at, if this is a mowing tractor that might be used, I don't know how often they get used or whatever, but they're not used. It is pertinent in the emergency side of it. So catching up to this, and like I said, on this situation here where everybody has a mobile. When we did this, we built in that everybody in Road and Bridge would have a mobile. I don't know about carrying, but have a mobile, that some operational procedural things that we'll have to make, but everybody has that portable radio. So if this dock is provided in those units, you're giving them that communications functionality in the field. But like I said, also a big part of this too is the security of the radio. And I know that we've had a couple radios stolen out of some equipment. This takes that away from it too, because as long as they do take their radio with them and leave that piece of equipment, you're not leaving a $10,000 or $8,000 piece of equipment in that tractor or truck. You're taking it with you.
After we get these installed, I know you said that they don't have to take them with you. Are you gonna, we're not requiring them if they're in a truck that doesn't have this currently to have a radio with them?
No, the truck has a radio now.
Well, I mean, like,
It's just operating on a different.
Right.
It's a totally different channel. And from the beginning, when we did this, we might have got more radios to begin with, but we really thought VHF and 700 would get along.
right. But what I'm saying is like, once we get these installed, are you gonna require those guys to have like that radio, at least one radio docked when they're using that equipment? To where
Yes,
they
I mean,
can,
yeah,
okay.
they're running the machine every time. They're gonna have communication.
Right.
Well, that's what I said. If it comes to the point, we have to dock those, if we have to dock the radios at the barn like they do in the jail.
Right.
Then when they go to their assignment in the morning, they grab their radio, then that's fine.
Okay.
I mean, they have the option to take them home. They have chargers at
Right.
home. But that's up to the employee that, they don't have to take it home. They can leave it there.
Well, I was just,
Yeah.
you kind of mentioned like not having it with, I just want to make sure that with they're using the truck, they had access to the channel that 700 channel.
Yes, if they have to have their little radio to dock in there to have that access.
Okay.
They won't have no radio at all
Right.
anymore. The old radios will be coming out
Right.
when we put this docking station in.
So you're gonna require them to do that, though, like to talk
Yes.
them, not just use a cell phone or something. That's, I was just asking about I don't want them to just say,
Yes,
well,
it'll
I'm
take-
leaving my radio at home. I'm gonna just go out and use my cell
It'll take a
phone.
while to get it,
Right.
to get them in the mode of having to have it or remembering to bring it or taking it or that's why we may put a dock station at the bar. So that way they can just grab the radio. It's not a deal where, well, I left mine at home or something like that.
Okay.
I think the main issue here is make sure everybody has communication.
Yes.
You're out on a job. So if something happens, you can get a hold of somebody.
Yeah.
I'd say most all of that communication now is cell phone and text message. It's not the radio.
There's a lot of it is, you're
And,
right. But when you have to have the radio system, I mean,
but
you have to
the
have.
equipment that goes out on fires and such as that, they're already equipped. They could talk to everybody, but I don't know that, I don't have a big problem with this, but I just don't think it's gonna do that good. But, because they're not gonna carry the radios. None of them do now, so.
Well, they don't have a reason to carry them now. When we do this, then they're gonna have a reason to have it.
Yeah,
Do you-
it'll be in a
you
few
think-
months how this works
You
out.
see that yourself making a policy for that or like to require them to have that? Because I know with cell phones, it's easy to text, but if you need to talk to multiple, if something happens on a mower and they need everybody to hear that they had an emergency, I don't want them like texting you and just hoping.
Yeah.
I want them, I'm just from a liability standpoint, I would like, if we're going to invest in that, to require that that equipment doesn't leave without a radio docked in there
Yes.
at all times.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you do that as
I
policy.
agree. I mean, there's no use in putting them in if we're not gonna put a radio in them and use them. But yeah, they're gonna be running that machine for that day. The radio needs to be available to put in there.
Okay.
That's a must. I mean, there's no use in doing it. There's not gonna be a radio for it. But but even with even like when the mowers mow or when the trucks haul bleachy, they communicate continuously on radio.
Yeah.
The whole haul. I mean, the trucks will tell each other that another truck's they're waiting to load. The mowers will say, hey, there's a culvert up here, or there's somebody throwed something in the bar ditch. They communicate with each other. It's not just for emergency situations. It's just a communication. And they're not going to call on the phone or text, while they're doing that stuff.
So you're,
Like I say, I'd like to have hard mounts in them, but the money's just not,
so you're gonna make it a policy, they have to carry radio.
no. I mean, they have to have one in the machine. If they're running the machine, if they're gonna run that machine, they'll have to have a radio to put in.
These guys don't even know what they're doing every morning until they don't know where they're headed most of the time. So they don't know if they're running a mower or they're running a truck or what.
And that's why I said, then the people that don't want to carry it all the time, well, they can dock theirs at the barn. And then when they come to work that morning, their radio will be there, ready to go.
I don't have a problem with what you're doing, that's fine, but is it gonna do any good? I really doubt it, but for the cost, it's a cheap way of making sure they can have radio.
Got a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve the $21,711.15 for the Motorola radio kits.
I'll second it. Oh,
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor? Okay,
Yeah.
all right, thanks, Dwayne. All right, item 21 is to consider and or approve any burn ban or rescind burn ban.
Our current drought index is 509. Little, we do have a little snowstorm coming through tonight and it's tomorrow. This is our current weather service prediction, so. They're trying to go a little further south, so maybe,
Yeah.
we might not even get that much, we might just get the one, less than one, but. So who knows, it might be 25 and that's pretty soon, actually. But currently, the burn ban is in place by some chance that we do say dump a foot of snow. And usually as soon as we start getting snow, I'll get phone calls, hey, we want to burn. Well, that's the case, I can get with the judge, but I leave the burn ban in place right now until we see what this actually does. And if by some chance it does give us some significant moisture, I can get hold of the judge and we can do a release on the burn ban at the time, but I'd like to keep it in place right now until we know what's going on.
Okay, no action on that. Thank you. All right, item 22, consider and or approve disposal of obsolete office equipment. I don't think I had anything this time. 23, accept certificates of completion from elected or appointed officials.
Carrie Kimmel, tax assessor, as well as Gary Alexander, county commissioner, submitted certificates for cybersecurity awareness training. Gary Alexander also submitted a certificate for security awareness training. Tammy McBriar, our district clerk, submitted certificate for Texas Open Meetings Act training, and Ben Bentley submitted continuing education transcript for 2022 with 32 hours old.
Okay, thank you. Item 24, consider and or approve request for use of the club room at the Borger Library or fridge.
So January 28th, I had a baby shower that moved from.
Congratulations.
Thank you. That moved from earlier to the 28th. I have a baby shower on the February 18th. I got a lot of baby showers. And then a first birthday party on May 20th. I'm getting young.
Nick Gannon. Let me, I have one, but I gotta find her email or text message. Have something on February 4th. Okay, here we go. February 4th is a birthday party, and then February 25th is one of Chris's baby showers.
Okay.
Not really, but.
Thank you.
Not a baby shower.
All right, item 25, consider and or approve line item changes, transfers and or budget amendments. Lisa?
Had an amendment, the jail received their SCAT grant revenue, so we budgeted for that revenue that's coming in. And then also while reviewing some of the financials, I realized that we never entered the budget for the juvenile special fund. So I did the amendment to record those probation fees that they'll be collecting in the budget to where they can spend it. And there's just a couple of line item transfer requests, moving from one line item to another for the constable precinct 2 and the county clerk.
I do hear a motion.
I'll move to approve the budget amendments as presented.
Motion second. Any further discussion? All in favor? I've got that. Alicia. Yes. Item 26, consider and or approve advertising, opening, accepting or awarding bids.
So I have a new request to go out for sealed bid from the Road and Bridge for the replacement of 2 pickup trucks. They listed the specs and I sent the public notice for y'all to approve advertising for that. I'm planning on advertising on February the 3rd and the 10th. Bid time will be the 20th. And then we could review it that next commission or make
An award.
an award. Thank you.
Okay.
At that next commissioner's report. If y'all approve the advertisement.
You want to keep that? Hey, did y'all see this?
Did what?
The request for sealed bid.
Yes, I
Oh, yeah.
emailed it.
Yeah, oh. Okay, so everyone had a chance to review it. Is there a motion to,
Make a motion to go out for seal bids for. Yes.
I'll second it.
okay, we have a motion and second. Any further discussion? All in favor?
And then I also received, we went out for RFQ on engineers, and I received several packages back. There's one, so we cut it off on the 16th, which was Monday, I think, last Monday. So that was Martin Luther King Day. We were closed on Friday. FedEx tried to deliver a package. And of course, we were closed on Friday. The FedEx lady told us Tuesday when she delivered this package that her boss told her that we were closed on Martin Luther King.
Oh.
She did not come by.
She didn't try to.
But this would have been received in time, but I did not include it because technically it wasn't, and it is from OJV Engineering.
Well, I think we should include it. It's not their fault.
Yeah, that's kind of what I thought. So, I did bring in copies that they have, and I've got it electronically too, if y'all want me to send that to you. They're basically more of a, it's civil and hydrology are their specialties. I don't know.
So we would really ever have a need for them?
Right. Here, what's the- no, what's the sign? I didn't even put it on. Sorry, I was bad. So the way that the RFQs work is, you're supposed to figure out who is the most highly qualified for your needs, and then negotiate with them a contract of some sort. And if that.
For that specific project?
Well,
In
well,
general,
for we're doing an in general.
Huh.
That's what the request for qualification was for. Was just to kind of have somebody on hand to call whenever we have projects that will require an engineer. And so a lot of entities will come up with some sort of scoring sheet, and I've sent like an example to you guys. We would just need to figure out the criteria that we would want to score people on. And you don't have to use the score sheet, but you do have to have some sort of way to figure out who's the most highly qualified for your need.
So if I understand correctly, with all of these bids that come in, we're making a decision on which engineer company we're gonna go with as an entity.
Right.
Not, we know what this can do and this one can do. This isn't information, this is, you're as a court, we as a commissioner's court are gonna decide this company wins
so we call them every time.
every time. Okay.
It's like, it's
I don't.
It's not a bid, it's not a bid, it's not a bid at all. There's no they cannot tell us any kind of monetary stuff until we go into negotiations.
By statute, are we having to do this, or this is,
Yes. Well,
We have to name one engineering firm only to be our priority.
not for, for what we need, and you can have, say, for civil engineering, if we were gonna do drainage work or roads, that kind of civil engineering, you could have something that qualifies for that. For electrical, some of these may only be electrical and mechanical engineers. And so this gives you who you need to call. And you can have more than one, you can negotiate with more than one, but you can't negotiate with this one on civil engineering and this one on civil engineering.
so if we list them out like civil, we have 3 options. They can contact all 3 of them.
We have to pick
That's what I-
one
This would be
civil
your-
engineer,
your-
one,
What did you just say that we could go to multiple?
if they only had a specialty in one
Yes.
arena.
So each
if you had a
category,
specialty for civil who did not do mechanical or
Okay.
electrical, then that's who you could contract with them to be your consultant for civil engineering projects. And then you could have this other company as your electrical and mechanical consultant.
But whatever we decide as a court is the engineer firm that we would, if any of us had a
That's how you have
project,
to select.
we would go to that person.
So what if we had a project that has a civil and a mechanical aspect? And there's two different ones in each category.
Then you would have to use both.
Okay.
Because this company over here doesn't do civil, or maybe they do. I don't know.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Say one does mechanical and civil and one only does civil.
My suggestion is to figure out, because this is a very broad. So think about the kind of projects that we're gonna have to do. You know, this is gonna be for mostly facility upgrading or remodeling. So this is, we need to find somebody who meets those qualifications.
I see in your,
If later on down the road, we have a big road project or a big drainage project, then you can go out for RFQ on that. For civil or a hydrology or something architectural, if we're gonna build a new building or.
so if you have a project and you call whoever the court recommends, and you think it's too high priced and they're wanting too much money to do this,
You don't bid professional services.
I didn't say you bid it, but when you
Right.
start that project, you need to know kind of an idea what you're costing. It's not a, you
That's
don't
why
sign a blank
you-
check, and give it to them.
No, that's why you negotiate a contract with them, find out what they're gonna charge you for consulting, find out what they're gonna charge you for project management, they have different levels of service.
That's what I'm saying. If
But
you
you
do
have to
that
have
and you don't agree with them,
Contract Basically with them, just like we have a contract with our outside auditors. And we negotiate a price with them. It's the same concept because it's a professional service. It's not just a repair or, it's a different kind of a different statute, different laws. And unfortunately, I didn't make the law.
Yeah, but in that government code, it talks about in procuring it, you must first select the most highly qualified provider. When department head or like say I have the power to select the most highly qualified provider instead of the commissioner's court deciding it. I think that's where the interpretation of the law is. Like, we're telling them this is your most highly qualified provider that we've sought out. But I have contacts where I've called to tell me a price for their professional services for this project. And then I choose who I think the most highly qualified is based on job, not on like an overall blanket. So is that part of the statute? Is that saying that needs to be done generally, or it can be done job by job where we compile, like we keep this in a database and whoever is doing those jobs, they can look at all that and decide who they think the most highly qualified provider would be.
I guess I understand. This is who
I get
this
it.
is who
So we
you
have,
would
like-
consult.
So we have like
If
how
there's
many, how many actually submitted the information?
6.
6?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6,
And then,
7. So they do that.
right, okay. So can we just keep all 7 of those? I think that I understand your question, like keep all 7 of those in our pocket and then pick which one
No,
best
because this
suits the need for that
Company A
project?
and company B may have the same, like they're both civil engineers, or they're both structural engineers, or they're both. And you can't just pick them, you have to negotiate a contract with them. You have to, and if you can't come to an agreement with the one that you have deemed most highly qualified, then you move to the second most highly qualified and you see if you can work out a contract with them.
We're not
It's not-
deciding
it's not-
anything today, but
It's not per project, it's just,
Well, if we had gone for requests for a specific project, then we could, and you could do that every time, but it's gonna be very time consuming. That's why we did one as a general broad. You're gonna be our designated consultant until we go out for RFQ again in the future. But you can make it to where you go out for RFQ, but you're gonna have to plan way far ahead in advance. I know that I want to install bulletproof walls and doors that are gonna be over $20,000 or whatever. So now I have to go out for RFQ for an engineer first. Get that, figure out who's gonna be the engineer on the project.
I'd like to do more research on that, because I can tell you, like Ben, if, say, in that statute, it says choose the most highly qualified. If we have a choice of two, Ben's gonna think one is more highly qualified than I might think for a project. I don't want to pinhole us in to say this is the only one you can choose. But if we have those RFQs on hand, all 7 of them, whoever's doing the project can decide who they think is the most highly qualified for their services. And I think I want to do research on
So then
seeing.
we probably don't need to do a generalized. And it should be based on project, and then you're gonna have to add a couple of months planning to your project.
Well, we have the RFQs saying the statute that it's never black and white on statutes. It says choose the most highly qualified. That doesn't say the court has to choose the most highly qualified. Like if we have 6 on hand and we say, if you have a project, these 2 are mechanical, electrical, these 2 are civil. And then whoever based on their, because that scoring sheet also has personal experience. We've talked about engineering firms that Ben doesn't like that have done good work for me. So that scoring is going to change the score sheet.
I wouldn't score one nearly as high as you would, because you had good luck. I did, okay, that's fine. That's all good. But we need the right to be able
And I
to
can.
pick who we feel are comfortable with.
Figure out. But I think it goes back, but then it would be project specific, and you would have to go out for an RFQ for that specific project.
Okay, I just want to go back and read the statutes a little better.
I get why, I mean, from the city perspective, we had to do this, but we had $1 million sewers and water lines and stuff like that. We would let these companies sell themselves to us, these engineer firms. But when we're dealing, we don't do a lot of that infrastructure in the county, so ours are mainly maintenance of a building or a bathroom or I mean, it's kind of little. And I understand the reason needing an engineer, but it's different if we were knowing we're gonna run water to 400 houses. And we need a
But
civil
you
engineer.
still have the same statute that you have to
Right.
follow, whether it's $1 million project or a $20,000 project.
Hopefully the dollar limit gets raised up, and they're working on it in the legislature to get it up
I'll drive.
100,000 or so, but that'd be fine. But these $20,000 projects is pretty
We
ridiculous.
spend more money on an engineer.
Yeah, you spend more on
On the project.
project.
No, it's ridiculous,
It's just totally ridiculous. But
but it is,
I agree, but
it's a
once
statute.
I had the statute, I have to.
Right.
Make sure that
Um,
it's being.
My wife's an administrator, so once administrators see it,
Yeah,
and
once
they
you
can't
know.
deviate from it,
Yeah,
because
absolutely.
It's like I
they will
can,
not sleep
I
at
can
night.
pick and choose which laws we have to follow.
Well,
Right.
interpretation of the law, though. That's why, that's why.
And maybe we can visit with Craig and see
I think
what
we have
his
a pretty good,
interpretation.
we got to follow statute. However, we've had a pretty good track record of getting our projects completed and getting done.
Timely,
So,
No,
you know,
except for train. I'll miss that. Except for train.
and yes, do a little more digging before you start doing any sort of negotiation.
Well, you got a lot more than I figured you would, so I'm proud. You did good.
Yeah.
I didn't do, I mean, I just.
Well, I mean,
what I was
when they
supposed to
came
do.
in,
Smiling.
we had more, because I was thinking, what are there,
Yeah,
3
nobody
in the
did
area?
it.
And we got 7 people.
Yeah, I'm surprised.
I just
Yeah. Yeah.
got 7 back.
That's good. That's
That's
good
good.
ratio.
You know, these rules that for the big cities don't work.
3 of these I've never heard of.
Yeah, that's cool.
That's the problem.
Okay. So,
Thank
We-
you, though.
yeah.
Doing all
They did good bids too. I looked at them Sunday.
all right, item 27 is to consider and or approve donations to Hutchinson County, and I did not have any. I'm aware of. 28, accept reports from elected or appointed officials.
Dwayne Chisholm, Road Superintendent, submitted a written report for January 9th, 2023 through January 22nd, 2023.
Okay, thank you. Item 29, discussion of county judges and commissioners precinct daily operations. Hannah, do you have anything to report from the agri-life and the rabbit show and all the fun events we've had going on?
So in the past 2 weeks, we've had quite a busy season here in Hutchinson County. As far as the agri-life side of things, I want to thank each and every one of you for attending the Hutchinson County Livestock Show. It was so nice for me to see y'all's faces there, supporting the kids. They enjoy y'all's support. My kids did awesome at the Hutchinson County Show. At the sale, they raised over around $75,000 for the kids. It was awesome. And thank you for announcing. You did such a good job. But overall, I wanted to say thank y'all for that. We had the rabbit show this past weekend. It was so much fun. If you've ever talked to one of the rabbit kids, they know their animals backwards and forwards. They know what they're feeding it. They can identify pretty much everything on breed characteristics. And they're just very knowledgeable about their species. But we had a great time this Saturday with them. But yeah, thank y'all. That's kind of what's happening right now in the past few weeks. In the upcoming month, y'all won't see me as much. I'll be in San Angelo and San Antonio for a majority of the month of February with Stock Show kids and getting them to, there's a couple of public speaking events for one of the kids, and then the rest will be steers, heifers, and pigs down there. So, but if y'all have any other questions, just let me know.
Thank you.
I would like to say the judge that the committee picked out was awesome.
He does a great job.
Yeah.
That was my first time seeing him. I didn't get to see him last year. But I thought he did really well.
Yes.
Overall, I thought the show was really
Yeah,
good.
Yes.
great venue.
Thank you.
Thanks.
The rabbit judge.
Was it?
Yes, he was
He let the
very,
kids come behind and he
Yeah.
like told them exactly. what to do.
Oh,
He
that's
was very
cool. I love that kind of stuff.
Can we get some rabbits donated, like court rabbits?
no, do not encourage him.
I want just a Himalayan just to stretch it. out.
Right, just as you said.
Just lay on the couch.
They do. I'm gonna show you a picture.
Yeah. It's cool.
You stretch them out like a
Really?
Pringles can, and that's how you judge them, like how cylindrical they are. And they just lay there.
They don't move.
That's
They
why.
don't hop.
And then
Don't try
another
to hop
kind,
off.
they run off all down, up and down the table.
Yes, well,
I learned a lot about rabbit. It was great. Okay, anybody else have anything on that? You guys have anything on your precinct?
So the museum, the fire escape are installed. So
Okay.
that's.
Everything's good.
That's good.
Okay,
So we don't have to use them, but
No.
they're there.
no, we have them. We don't want to use them. Okay. Anybody
like-
else?
I would like to say Eddie's been doing a lot of offices
Yes, he has.
everywhere and he's doing a super job. And he's been staying on it pretty hard.
Anything else? Hats off to our emergency management. Thanks for taking care of us last week. Anything else? No? Okay. Item 30 is struck off tax properties. We do not have any this week, so Commissioner Alexander,
I would like to make a motion that we adjourn.
it is 12 o'clock.
It's time.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Meeting adjourned.
Good. Like,